What's up, ladies and gentlemen? It's Daniel here from the GeekSpeakNation channel, and I'm here to give you my spoiler-filled thoughts on The Boys Season 2. So, this is my second time having to record this video because I recorded a 20-minute long review and then all the audio got corrupted out of nowhere. So, I feel like Homelander right now. Regardless of the technical difficulty, for you, this is the first time. For me, here we go again, the second time. Giving my thoughts on The Boys Season 2. Now, before we get into this, no, I have not reviewed Season 1, and that's because I only ended up watching Season 1 about a month before Season 2 ended up coming out, actually. It was a show, The Boys in general was a show that I was putting off for a while. A lot of people said, Daniel, you're gonna love it, it's twisted, it's dark, but it's an interesting take on superheroes and how they interact in the real world to a certain degree, and I was like, oh, okay, I'll watch it when I get to it. And so eventually, you know, as the pandemic does, you know, you're sitting around with nothing to watch. Eventually, show pops up in your timeline. You're like, well, it did come recommended. Might as well. And I absolutely love Season 1. Season 1 of The Boys is absolutely fantastic. I darn near say it's almost a perfect season. It is incredibly well written and very sharp in its satire and social commentary, which to me was the highlight of the show, was just how smart it is in being very self-aware and being very observant of our current political climate and certain aspects of our political climate, and contorting it into something that fits properly with the world of The Boys. I think it's just absolutely fantastic, and from what I can tell from what I know about the graphic novel, surpasses it in many ways. In many ways. So yeah, the Boys Season 1, absolutely fantastic. And it did a lot of great setup for Season 2. I mean, everything from the characters, the interaction of the world, the lore. There's plenty to dig into, Becca being alive. There was plenty to dig into for the show for Season 2, and for the most part it did not disappoint in its delivery. Do I think that Season 2 is as strong as Season 1? No. But do I think it's a darn near perfect follow-up? Yes, it is still a great season to a great TV show. And the number one thing is that they avoid a lot of the pitfalls that I've seen a lot of other TV shows running into this year. Whether it's Westworld, notice the trend is all Season 3s, by the way. Whether it's Westworld, whether it was Castlevania, or whether it was Ozark. This year has had an issue where in these like Season 3s or these later seasons of these TV shows, there's oftentimes a triple conflict going on between giving the fans what they expect from the series, setting up for the next season, for the future or the conclusion, and then lastly progressing our characters and developing them over the course of the season. And that is kind of like the trifecta that a lot of series have failed at this year. Whether it's, and a lot of them lean too heavily on trying to build for the next season and then not giving fans enough of what they loved about the show, or making characters very stagnant. But The Boys didn't really run into that this season. I think actually a perfect example of how the show handles certain things is the relationship between Becca and Billy Butcher. I think that was a great example of how this show was able to take an element that was highly anticipated, highly built up in Season 1, and immediately address it in Season 2, and making that a goal for Billy to get her back. And so you have something that was established in Season 1, and fans come to expect is Billy trying to save his wife. But the way that they develop it in such a smart way, by the way, is by having the child be in the mix and Billy being selfish to where he's ready to get rid of the child in order to keep his wife. That is very, very, very well done, and just sticking to their guns of who this character is and not letting him betray his code of how he operates and what his whole entire mission was from the very beginning is absolutely fantastic, because as it starts out, you know, it's kind of a little bit of a slow start to it, and then you are immediately able to see that Butcher is able to save, has the opportunity to save Becca, but she doesn't want to be saved because she wants her child to be safe. Then you get this interesting dynamic, and then further, Billy becomes this person who's like this compass that's out of whack. You know, he's just spinning in any direction, trying to find his moral compass. He's trying to find his guide. He's trying to find his way through this world. And to me, that makes him a very interesting character. It progresses him. He grows, and by the end of the season, he ends up having to make the hard choice of protecting the child that ends up, you know, well, killing his own mother and killing his wife. So he ends up having to protect that child and care for him and genuinely try to form a connection and a bond in order to make sure that child grows up safe and sound and is not a threat to the world like Homelander is. I think that is absolutely fantastic. So it ends up, that's an example of how the show kind of handles that trifecta, because it still affects something that was set up prior, and gives fans what they wanted. It progresses the character. It doesn't keep them stagnant. And then on top of that, it still sets up for the future, because now Ryan is an element at play. You know, the son of Homelander is now an element at play in the overall scheme of things, which is very, very interesting. And then moving forward, you know, and the best part about it is that it doesn't just stick to one character, it sticks to all of the characters, whether it's the relationship between Huey and Starlight and them becoming official, which is something that we kind of always wanted, but the dynamics in between that, Frenchie and Kimiko and them settling their differences and getting to understand one another. It goes for the characters, it goes for the world, the fight against Vought and how they get exposed, but then they use that to their own advantage, and that plays up the power dynamics. And then you also have the church as well. There's so many different elements that they're trying to balance and set up at the same time, and overall I think they do really well with all the elements, even though I'd say the number one element that lacks the most is probably the church and their whole entire play and the deep, because that kind of runs into my number one issue with this season is just it doesn't quite feel like it was made to be binged, but it doesn't quite feel like it was made to be weekly. And it's just certain elements between the setup and the payoffs for certain things, like saying the Fresca and the head explosions and all that sort of stuff. A lot of different elements are set up, but they're not properly paid off during a certain amount of time. Or by the time they are paid off, you're like, oh, this is just more setup for the next season. A good example of that is with Black Noir. If you're watching it, depending on your perspective, if you're watching it kind of in a binge, he may come off as how he is intended, which is like kind of a comedic relief, right? In that regard, or like a fan favorite character that people like to spot from time to time, but doesn't really have much else meaning inside of the story, as compared to if you're watching it weekly, he kind of comes off as like, okay, what are they hinting at? What are they setting up here with his confrontations, and who is he supposed to be? But they don't quite get into exploring that, and you're like, oh, I guess it's going to be left for next season. Same thing with everything that has to do with the Deep, who is still my least favorite character of the entire show. Some people's favorite, but hey, you know, if you like a serial rapist, it's all you. But yeah, so as those scenes go on, you understand their function in the story and what they're setting up, but that doesn't mean it's entertaining to watch as it's happening, because it's not as engaging as every single other scene or every single other character that directly helps develop the plot that is unfolding in front of our eyes, right? So that's for most part all I had to say about the negatives. It's still a great season overall. I think those the writing issues when it comes to the setups and payoffs can be easily resolved in the next season, since I think they're officially going to go down the road of doing the weekly release, because that's a triple win for Amazon. The show stays in headlines longer socially. The show makes them more money because people's subscriptions last longer because they subscribe for more months. And then lastly, at the end of the day, people are still going to be able to binge it all at once later on if that's what they end up preferring. So either way, the Amazon's loving that, so they're going to stick with that. But I think those issues with the pacing can be easily resolved. And yeah, I think for what they have set up, I think they're going to stick with those plot lines and developing plot lines for a while, and we won't get too much of the extra setup like we've gotten this season. I think we're going to be going with the flow and the rhythm of people trying to navigate this new world that's been set up for them, with, you know, Billy starting his own, you know, soup hunting team, and Huey working for a soup and not knowing. I think that Homelander just slowly but surely losing his mind. I think there's a lot of interesting elements that are at play that are going to be much more smoothed out in season 3. Like I said, I still think this was a fantastic season. It's just not as strong, I think, in the writing department and the structure of it as season 1, and there is some social commentary that just feels way too on the nose and doesn't feel very like nuanced as it is in season 1. I think especially a lot of it had to do for me with they had this one opening scene where it's like, oh, this one guy becomes an extremist and attacks that gas station clerk. I think that scene was very on the nose about extremism and how very terrible ideologies can get rooted into people's brains. I see what they were trying to go for, but I think there was a more effective, more subtle way of doing it than the way they handled it inside of the show. But with that being said, overall, still a good show, still a great season. It's not as strong as season 1 in my personal opinion, but all the kinks I think they're gonna iron out for the next one, and I just can't wait for it. I think they did a really good job. It was exciting to watch, and I know I didn't mention the performances, but I just think it goes without saying, all of the performances in the show are fantastic. Homelander's wonderful. Carl Urban is phenomenal as Billy Butcher. Frenchie was a big standout for me this season. He was really great. Emin was awesome. Torchlighter, Lamplighter is his name. Lamplighter was really good as well. Yeah, there's really good performances overall. Good laughs to be had, good tears to shed. But overall, I really did enjoy the season. I think it was very well done. I enjoyed the performances. The action was solid. Although my only gripe is that with the action is that our main characters definitely should have died in certain scenarios, especially if you're looking at like the final battle and Stormfront's going all out. Yeah, Frenchie, MM, and Huey definitely should have died with Stormfront shooting lightning like that. And yeah, but that, and then Billy gets out of a lot of situations by having the right phone call, or right phone number to call, or being able to strike a deal at the very last second. No more of that next season, please. Like, we did a lot of that, we did a little bit of that in season 1, too much of that in season 2. I think season 3, okay, I can let it go. But if they do it again, where he keeps on just happening to have called the exact right person to stop a situation, I'm gonna be like, okay, all right, this is officially getting ridiculous. But with that being said, guys, let me know what you thought of The Boys season 2 in the comment sections down below. I really do appreciate you guys watching this video. If you enjoyed my review, go down there, hit that like button, and if you're new here, subscribe to become a part of the GeekSpeakNation channel, and make sure you set that bell icon to all so you always get notified of when I post a video. And remember, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday we stream live on Twitch at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and play some video games. I'm not sure if I will stream tonight though, just because I've had some technical difficulties with my microphone today, which has been a big old pain in the butt. But if I do, I will let you know. Best place to know about that is follow me on Twitter at Daniel K. Hargrove, or follow me on Instagram at GeekSpeakNation. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. I'm Daniel, and don't forget to get geeky. Oh my god, I need water. My throat is tired. I've been talking for like an hour straight.